going to start things off by talking about EUIC getting more registration spots. It does feel like Pokemon was listening to some of the gripes of the community based on what happened last week.
Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, they gave up some more registration spots. Now it wasn't a whole ton, and there were still players left out of the registration slots. I think waves 1 and 2 were gone in 12 and 16 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know about wave 3, but there was 3 waves of registration slots, and it was on April 1st, so there was always the potential that it was an April Fool's joke, but it did not happen.
Thank you,
But yeah, it was
Pokemon.
50 slots each wave throughout the day. They were spread out by, I don't know, like 5 or 6 hours. I
And they
forget
announced the
exactly when
time
they.
of each wave, right? They announced the
Yeah.
time of when each thing was going to go live, which I think was one of the major gripes from the initial registration was that there was no exact announcement of like, hey, this is live, go crazy, or like even, hey, this will be live in X amount of hours or at X time. So they kind of recognized, I think, the mistake there and that people just wanted to know. And even if you don't get a spot, you at least know when you have to try your best to get one, right?
Yeah, I think they announced it the day before. So it would have been March 30th or 31st. I forget. Maybe it was 2 days before, but they were like, all right, April 1st, there'll be 3 waves of registration slots opening up. Here is the times for them. And, we'll let you we'll send out a reminder tweet ahead of time. So they definitely listened to the complaints that so many people had. And I think also we've seen a lot of uh, Twitter accounts from, people who are running some of the regionals also having like similar response and hearing the community as well, talking about, letting people know ahead of time when registration will be happening for stuff like New Jersey regionals and Indiana regionals and stuff. So it seems like no one's going to be left in the dark for any of these future events, which is a big deal as well, potentially, right? And hopefully, hopefully the registration slots still don't go away and you know, you know, 16 seconds, a minute, an hour, whatever. And hopefully, my hope would be that registration is open for at least 48 hours. I'm hoping that the cap is big enough that registration would maintain being open for like 48 hours after it opens. That would be like an ideal world, I guess, but I guess that might be kind of hard to accomplish. But it shows they listened. A little bit. I don't think we want to give them too much credit until we see how they really handle the rest of the major events. I guess NAIC will kind of be the big tell on if they're trying to make a big difference or if they're just going to try and put more band-aids on problems.
Yeah, hopefully this is I think all communication from the Pokemon company is very welcomed by the player base because we are just so used to years of zero communication. So the fact that they were able to announce a day or two in advance of like, hey, there's going to be waves of registration. Here are your opportunities. Get in there. If they had done that from the start, I think there would be way less complaining. Obviously, the fact that the player cap still exists, it still would have inevitably sold out within seconds, probably a few minutes of each wave, assuming they do 3 waves and have the same amount of spots available just from the beginning. So to me, it really should make more space. They should book another venue hall. They obviously have the interest in the demand for something like that. And obviously you can't do that in last minute's notice, right? This is something they would have had to have chosen to do months ago, which is much harder to make that call months and months in advance, right? So I can understand from an organization standpoint how it can be tough to do that, but the demand is there. There really is no good reason that they shouldn't make more space for more players to be able to participate in these events.
Yeah, I had to assume that they just thought the demand wouldn't be there, right? Whenever they booked this venue, they had to have assumed that the demand wouldn't be there. But I think it was pretty telling that it would be there when Salt Lake City happened, I think, with how big Salt Lake City regionals was. And then we saw how Liverpool went down, where there was tons of people left out of Liverpool regionals. Like that capped really fast. And I think same thing with the Bilboa special event that capped really fast too. I think registration already happened for that, and that went away in like a minute. But
Yeah.
they did give a date and a time for that when they're like, "Reg is going to be live here on this date at this time in this location." Best of luck. So that one capped really fast too. I think we just need to see from the next venue that gets booked for regionals or special events. It just needs to be bigger. You got to find a bigger venue. The people will show up. The players will show up. And we just kind of leave it on, I guess, the organizers to find those bigger locations for the player base. Because yeah, the people will show up. You just have to have a place to put them.
So you missed out on registration in the initial wave because things got announced early morning Pacific Coast time and sold
Yeah.
out by the time you were, able to get news of it happening. What was the process like for you between the three different waves of trying to secure a registration spot for EUIC? Was it like stressful? Each wave went up. You're like, it's like real gamer moments trying to click through the pages quickly, check all the boxes, enter all your info. Was it like a stressful process?
Not really, because I at that point, actually, even before EUIC was announced and registration happened, like if I had initially been told that there was very, very limited seats, then I probably wouldn't have even tried to register or go to begin with. But after I started to develop some plans with some other players that I plan to be staying with and everything, I was like, okay, now I'm kind of committed to going at this point. And then I missed the initial wave because yeah, it was like 7 a.m. my time when it went up, so I wasn't even up by 8 a.m., which is by the time it sold out. But then for the three waves, the first one, I just like set a I didn't even set an alarm for the first one. I set an alarm because it was 7 a.m. my time in the morning. So that one I set an alarm for around like 6:30. Got up, was on the computer. But yeah, I and the first wave I didn't check one of the boxes, so I missed that. I don't know if that was the difference maker
Not a
overall.
real gamer
Yeah,
moment.
but I just didn't see it. It was the one at the top of the page. There's like two on the bottom you have to check, but there's one at the top of the page after you click register. And I just scrolled past it immediately and went to the bottom of the page, went checkbox, next. And it was like, wait,
Rookie
you missed it. I was like, oh
mistake.
no. I had to find that box. But on the second wave, it's pretty clean. Checkbox, and autofill on my credit card information for the payment. And then, yeah, I made it in pretty cleanly in the second time around. But I just didn't know that that box existed. So I didn't have to go through the stress of sitting around for the third wave. Thankfully, a lot of people did. A lot of people missed. And that kind of sucks. I think for these kind of events in general, you should definitely, if they think there is a possibility that there is going to be, if they don't get enough seats that they think the registration might hit the cap, because there's always going to be a cap no matter what, right? Like even at events with huge halls and that don't hit a cap, and then a ton of people show up, there's still a cap, right? You can only fit so many people in these venues. You can't like have 4,000 people in a venue hall that seats like 2,000, right? So there's always a cap. But there's some of the caps are smaller than others, but they should do like especially for like the international events, at least throughout one day, open up different waves of registration and let people know that, especially for the international events, even at like the local regional level events. So I think they should do the same thing. People have to be to work or they work late shifts and they're going to be asleep throughout the middle of the day. So there should be like three periods of
I
time.
like it.
If they think
Yeah.
there's any potential for something to cap, there should be three periods of time, I think, throughout a day where registrate like divvied up 1/3 of the registration slots will open up each time and so on. So
Yeah, I
but
think
yeah, I
that's a
managed to
good
squeak in.
system, and I would like to see tournaments if there is going to be lower caps. I think moving forward, that is a good system for TOs
Yeah.
and for Pokemon to adopt for their events moving forward.